Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Zero Gravity Gaming Gold League 2022 Spring Split Draw Show. I am MXL for, unfortunately, the only time this season on camera, and I'm going to be joined tonight by Tex to discuss some of the groups that we are going to be drawing and a little more info on teams as they are selected. How are you doing tonight, Tex?
Great. I had a little panic moment literally 1 minute before going live, where my entire internet cut out. Restarted my machine. That worked or something. But I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. Lots of new teams that we get to look at today and see how they line up into the groups. And yeah, I'm always happy to have a stream with you, Brandon. This is gonna be great.
I love to hear it. As you can see, some of these teams are going to have their logos displayed on the bottom of your screens as we go through this draw show. So let's discuss a little bit the format. First things first, 16 teams will be playing in a 4-group double round robin group stage. After the completion of the group stage, the top 2 teams from each group will be drawn into the upper bracket and the bottom 2 into the lower. Teams in the upper bracket will have an additional life, so to say, allowing them one loss, and which will then place them in the lower bracket. A series loss in the lower bracket will lead to elimination. With all that in mind, we got to get to the groups. For tonight's group draw, teams have been sorted into 3 pools. As teams are randomly drawn, they will be placed into groups sequentially, going from group A to D, then A to D again, etc., until all groups are filled. The only stipulation is that any sister teams or teams from the same organization in the tournament will not be allowed to end up in the same group. This will apply to the 2 Conduit teams. For example, if Conduit Spark is in Group A and Surge is selected for Group A, they will instead be placed into Group B to avoid any 2 teams from the same organization being placed together. With all this in mind, we're going to get this show underway fairly quickly. So I do want to introduce, first and foremost, the teams that will make up Pool 1. And these 4 teams should be on your screen now. We've got RAR, Conduit Surge, Imperial Gaming, and Going Ghost. And now for what's arguably the most stressful part of this whole thing. We've got to pick the team. So, right now we will see on your screen, randomly rotating through images, the Pool 1 teams.
Oh, look at that technology go.
The first team that will be selected from Pool 1 and placed into Group A is Imperial Gaming.
All right, Imperial Gaming. So a lot of us are gonna know Imperial Gaming. They're someone who's been around ZGG before. Similar to other orgs that have been around for a while in the league, Imperial Gaming, or IG, is always a strong team in the regular season. They tend to have competitive playoff sets. Well, last season, their playoff run did end with a 3-0 loss to TD Harmony in the quarters. This returning roster looks pretty much identical, with all 5 starting members coming back for a redemption run. And a few new faces. Those few new faces on the list here are Indigo and Noble Bark. A little bit of information about Imperial Gaming for you guys there.
Yeah, very excited to see. Again, these first few teams will be kind of obviously sorted, I'll say. Each one will go into a unique group. Pool 2 is where it'll get a little more interesting. 8 teams there. Pool 3, another 4, 1 per group again. So, with that said, the second team will be selected here shortly. And the second team, pulled from Pool 1, that will be placed into Group B, is going to be RAR.
All right. Talking about better than words, we all know RAR. We all know who these guys are. And all of our history with them aside, one of the things that we know about RAR is their ability to field what are consistently competitive rosters. We've seen RAR in playoffs and in high-level competition often. They ended last split in the quarterfinals 3-1 to future finalists Agni Kai. Doki and the crew are looking for, also similar to Imperial, a redemption this season. The roster is looking to be built around the mid and ADC duo that took them to quarters previously, but they have some new additions that are definitely looking pretty hot from a stats and general power assessment. We're pretty excited to see what Raw can do going into this split.
Yeah, definitely excited to see. Rar, definitely one of the tournament favorites just on paper coming in. Definitely interested to see what they're going to do going forward. But now that leads us to our third draw from Pool 1, who will be going into Group C. And it's going to be Conduit Surge into Group C.
So our first sister team for the day, Conduit Surge, is looking to stand apart from that sister team. They feature a handful of returning veterans to the scene, to the ZGG scene, rather. Black Eyed Peas is always an incredibly strong jungler. We've got Hyde and Shrouds, who was a key part of the Literal Monkeys championship winning team from last season. And if the Goons and Monkeys are able to click, this team, we think, can definitely, and I'm taking a bit from some notes from Brandon here, surge ahead of the competition very quickly. I had to make sure Brandon got credit for that little anecdote about this team here.
Of course, of course. If you know me, I love my puns. I think I even wrote in the team blurb there something about my bad puns with Black Eyed Peas last season. Apologies if you are watching and had to deal with that. I had fun.
I got to stream those games with you early on. Oh my goodness.
It was a wonderful, wonderful time. But with that said, our fourth and final team coming out from Pool 1 will be drafted into Group D. No surprises here. It's going to be Going Ghost.
Yeah, Going Ghost is pretty exciting. Something unique about this team is they go on the whole distance 10-player roster with a wide collection of champions for each player. Their pools are deep. They've got a cool logo. And a number of unique playstyles, right? This team is expected to bring a lot of spice to the series that they're playing in. It's encourage keeping your eyes on, keeping the track on how this team goes, seeing how they adapt in the middle of a series, given the depth of the roster and the depth per player within that roster. So definitely a title contender that we're excited to see how they play out the rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure. With that said, we're going to take just a quick look here at the groups that we have lined up. Again, nothing too much to see. These four different Pool 1 teams, I should say, will be making up the first teams in each of the four groups. Interested to see where the rest of this lands. Next up, of course, is going to be Pool 2. This pool consists of 8 teams instead of the 4 that 1 and 3 have. And those 8 teams are going to be MDF, Phantoms, New Wave Vice, Hyperion Sword, Revolution Shang Gold, Clinical, G&E Aquamarine, and AH Frostbane.
Loving the names, man. We got some really cool names in here.
Fun fact, just to throw this in here because I love being able to say it. Clinical's point of contact and captain is Pharma. Just come on, it's too good.
It lines up. It lines up.
It lines up
Pharma's
beautifully.
Clinical. Great.
Yeah. With that said, it is time to start drawing for teams from Pool 2. So the first team that is going to be selected from Pool 2 and will be placed into Group A is... It's going to be AH Frostbane.
All right. So we mentioned at the top of the show, there's a lot of new faces to the league this go around, and this is one of the newcomers. Abyssal Haven is a team that's looking to have to leave a strong impression with their first roster in ZGG Gold. I think we've seen Abyssal around before, but this particular roster is showing up new to the ZGG Gold scene with a strong jungler in Apathy and an enchanter in Illumin. This team has the ability to play a heavy counter-engage style. I guess a seemingly engage-focused league. When we look around the league, there's a lot of teams that are playing that classic engage style draft. This is going to be a team that's going to rely on the early games a lot to control the early game in order to set themselves up for this very unique, unique to the league win condition. We're expecting them to be frustrating in play in a single round robin, so keep your eyes on these guys.
Yeah, definitely an interesting team on paper. Want to see how they're going to do. Definitely worth noting as well. One of the later additions to the league coming in off of that ping from last night as well. So very interested to see what will end up happening there. With that said, the second team from Pool 2 that will be drawn into Group B is going to be New Wave Vice.
New Wave Vice. I love the team name. I love the vibe. The logo is fantastic. Sorry, getting the aesthetic bits, get my aesthetic praise out of the way. Team with the coolest logo. New Wave Vice is looking to best New Wave Esports playoff run from last split. They ended that run losing 3-1 to BDE Sapphire. This team sports veterans in Moby White and Warning Shots, who will be looking to lead this team of otherwise fresh faces to another strong playoff showing. Keep an eye out. Could be a title contender.
Yeah, definitely another one of those, I don't want to say sleeper teams necessarily, but definitely has the potential to do very well in this tournament. Interested to see how they will fare going forward in ZGG
Absolutely.
Gold. Next up, the third team to be drawn from Pool 2, going to be placed into Group C, and it's going to be Revolution Shang Gold.
All right, close to my heart on this one. Team Revolution Shang Gold, named after the one and only Shanghai. Revolution didn't have a team in Gold, ZGG Gold last season, but is a storied org within the IBS space. Rev is generally known for providing a strong regular season, but often takes missteps when it comes to the playoffs and postseason, especially in recent history. We'll see if IBS veteran Merritt is able to take this leap to Gold and hang out along, go to bat with some new faces in NB4 and Orn Abuser, along with returning face from a while ago, Thanatos, closing up at the AD spot. This team is definitely one to keep your eyes on. And that's not just coming from me, just saying.
Yeah, definitely interested to see how they perform, Tex. I know you, the Revolution boy here, definitely a team that's close to your heart, even if only in name. But I'm gonna throw
Brutal,
that jab.
brutal.
We will have to see how they do alongside Conduit Surge in Group C. That's definitely shaping up to be a tough task. With that said, the fourth team to be drawn from Pool 2 will be placed into Group D. That team will be Clinical.
Pharma's own. Another untested roster. This Pharma and crew are looking to put on a... Okay, I'm taking this one for Brennan again. Putting on a clinic with their opposition. Utilizing heavy team fighting champions in Jarvan and Kennen in an effort to shut down games the second they get a lead. Toxic Koopa, which I absolutely love that name, and Pharma will definitely appear to be the players to watch for this team, but be on the lookout for No Guap to pull out something spicy to try to take over the game from the jungle.
Yeah, definitely interested in this team. You have to call me out whenever I make puns in these team blurbs, and I'm kind of upset about it, but definitely interested. I think this is one of those teams that can kind of fly under the radar if you're not careful. With that said, halfway through Pool 2, I do want to take a quick look at these groups once more. Imperial Gaming with AH Frostbane, RAR with New Wave Vice, Conduit Surge gonna be with Revolution Shang Gold, and Going Ghost with Clinical. Any thoughts right now, Tex?
The Imperial and Revolution one I'm excited about. New Wave and RAR is looking to be pretty competitive already. And one of the ones that's up in the air for me... Sorry, did I say Imperial and Revolution? I apologize. Not Imperial Revolution, Conduit and Revolution. But the one that I'm kind of interested and don't really have a good grip on is the Going Ghost and Clinical side. I think that one's a little bit up in the air for me in terms of getting a decent feel for. I mean, it's only 2 in, but still not quite sure how that's going to play out.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. I think it's definitely going to be a fun group to look at. There are so many question marks right now with a lot of these players. While we might know the players or a handful of the players, we obviously haven't seen these teams come together yet, so very interested to see how that turns out. At this point, though, there are 4 teams remaining to be drawn from Pool 2. On your screen, we see MDF, Phantoms, Hyperion Sword, and GNE Aquamarine. With this in mind, the 5th team from Pool 2 that will be drawn into Group A, alongside Imperial Gaming and AH Frostbane, is going to be Phantoms.
Phantoms, all right. Recently rebranded. Phantoms is coming in with a lot of potential, a lot of power in every single role on the team. Definitely a team to be looking out for on the Rift. Playmaking potential coming from Funny Dud. A handful of extremely strong bot lane picks for Risaka. And flexibility with a handful of picks between their mid and top laners, which is always exciting to see. This team is definitely one to be worried about in the draft, which is always exciting in gold when you get some spicy drafts and a little bit of that dance going back and forth. It's one of the great things about the gold scene. Watch out for even a potential Riven mid pick from Zuko, depending on the matchup, of course.
I only say that when thinking about things like LeBlanc that tend to pop up. Riven has a fairly fun time into her. I'm hoping. I saw a lot of LeBlanc from their mid laner, a lot of Riven, rather, from their mid laner. Very interested to see. If I get to broadcast a Riven mid game, oh my, I'm going to be so happy.
Ooh, that sounds fun, though. I'm not going to lie.
Tons of fun. With that said, now it's time for the 6th team from Pool 2. They will be placed into Group B alongside RAR and New Wave Vice. This team will be Hyperion Sword.
Hyperion Sword, a familiar face to all of us in ZGG. Consistently, Hyperion performs well to cross into playoffs. They're a relatively common fixture in playoffs. Returning veterans, Bees, Vex, Alistair, and Attila help make this roster look pretty solid. They had a rough 2-0 loss to Monkeys Rising last season in the round of 16. But they're looking to bounce back. With these veteran players. Big players to watch out for are Bees, who's role swapping from top to support, which is a pretty big change. And Attila, a staple on the roster and in the league, being a reliable carry ever since the inception of this team. So some pretty cool names to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, definitely interested. I think you might have said from top to support. It's the other way around. To top from support.
To top from support. Okay, so my bad. I'm sorry.
Having been there, having done that exact swap, yeah, it's
still either top to support to top. It's an extreme change in the way you play the game.
Yeah, for sure. Now, for the second to last team to be drawn from Pool 2, they will be joining Conduit Surge and Revolution Shang Gold. The team will be MDF.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna need some help pronouncing this.
Just say MDF.
Du fromage?
That's close enough.
Close enough. All right. I'm from Texas. I'm not naturally gifted with much less trying to pronounce the fancy words. Anyways, MDF is another new org among the many new faces, with a handful of veterans though, to the ZGG scene in particular. So Vandrel and Bam make their return, previously of GSG Sigma, looking to make up for their 2-1 loss to New Wave Esports in the round of 16 last season. Alongside them are newcomers to the scene in Skelly P and Chilla Frost, who both appear to be stable players in their respective roles. Dobbs, of course, rounding out the top half of the map. This is another roster that has the potential to turn heads. There's some big names in there. Yeah. Dobbs, Bam. I'm excited for this roster.
Yeah, definitely one of those rosters, again, and I think I've said this for a handful of the Pool 2 teams, that can kind of go under the radar and just really take over games, take over a group. If there's an angle where, a quote-unquote upset could happen. Definitely feel like Pool 2 are a lot of these teams that can do it. But with that said, the last team that will be drawn into Group D is going to be G&E Aquamarine. They will be joining... Hold on, I lost my group sheet. Going Ghost and Clinical in Group D.
I'm excited about this one. Another new face, and we always like to see new faces, new players, new orgs. Genie Aquamarine comes in with a roster of untested talent on paper. The champion styles their starting roster plays with mesh extremely well together and could set up for devastating games if left open. Watch out for Makia on Viego or Nocturne, or Platypus Killer, which is a beautiful name. Platypus Killer on the Vi, as these seem to be extremely stable picks for the team's success. A lot of playmaking, a lot of setup. With a seemingly reliable mid and AD, this is not a team to be looked down upon.
Well, with all that said, that sorts out our Pool 2 teams into our groups. That means we have 3 teams slotted into each group, and as we take a look, I think I'm starting to agree with you a little more here, Tex. Group B looks so competitive and so terrifying.
Right? Hyperion, RAR, and New Wave are just bringing the heat. Honestly, that's kind of my gut says that's going to be really competitive. I'm also just off the bat, on paper, off the bat, we're going to see a lot of really cool games out of that group. A lot of dynamics or dynamic positioning as the season goes on. I also think Group C is starting to shape up to be a bit of maybe like you talked about the sleeper competitive teams. I think we might be seeing some of that from Group C. Group D, the same. There's, I think, some unproven stuff with G&E there. And then Group A, I think Group A is kind of like that. My gut's telling me that's like the benchmark of competitiveness. That group is going to be right there, drawing the line of competitiveness. You're going to either be on the lower half or upper half. They're the bar to pass.
Awesome. Love to hear that analysis right now. Again, only so much we can do without seeing these players, right? So definitely interested to see if what we see on paper is going to line up with what we see on stage. But without further ado, the Pool 3 teams here. Again, want to reiterate that if Conduit Spark is selected, they cannot be placed into Group C. If a draw would happen where they would be placed into Group C, they will instead be placed into the next available group. In this case, that would be Group D. With that in mind, your Pool 3 teams for the Gold Draw Show are Hidden Fang, Conduit Spark, DePaul University Team Black, and Infernal Dive. With this in mind, the first team selected from Pool 3 is going to be Conduit Spark.
Conduit Spark, the sister team. One of the 2 Conduit teams, Spark is another team who, on paper, seems to try and play through strong bruiser top lanes, leaving mid to reliable scaling carries, and enabling the team with Enchanter supports. If Frosted Crow and Momo are able to hold their own in lanes, this team is definitely one that can take teams by surprise. Their jungler seems to be able to play various styles as well, which can definitely be difficult for other teams to prepare for. I had a weird inflection there, I apologize. But I am excited about this. I like the overall feel of that team. I like that kind of style.
Yeah, definitely a fun team, and I think we mentioned this before. A tall task ahead of them going into that first group. That's kind of the baseline that we're saying right now for the playoffs race. But now it is time for the second team in Pool 3 to be selected. They will be joining Group B. And that team is going to be Infernal Dive.
Infernal Dive, another new one. Get excited. Keep your eyes on these guys. They do have a few veteran players looking to make a run for the title this season. Veterans Zuzu and Finny, who we've all seen around the scene for quite a while, definitely has potential to turn heads and demand respect. It seems they will have a strong flex potential, in draft with their bottom half of the map, with the big decider in their games being how well teams shut down Zuzu. If left unchecked, this player on his Gangplank or Fiora can be devastating. We love to see those kinds of carries take over the game sometimes. Sometimes. As a tank player, I'm not always the biggest fan. But
you love to see it when it's on your team. You hate to see it when you're against it, right? Definitely always a terrifying player and a terrifying set of players. I think Zuzu and Fenny generally known for being very strong as a duo. Absolutely. And definitely a duo to be scared of. So yeah, they're a pool 3 team, sure, but do not underestimate them because they will make you regret it. With that said, the third team to be selected from pool 3, who will be joining Conduit, Surge, Revolution, Shang, and MDF in Group C, is going to be DePaul University Team Black.
I'm excited about this. It's always cool to see a team from a university, a club team like that, kind of step into the competitive scene. It really helps branch the community out. A face of new players, DePaul University maintains a 6-man roster with flexibility in the top lane role. Zappin's slogan, I hope I said that right, seems to be more comfortable playing tank champions. I'm right there with you, buddy. With King Pink, another great name, looking to go toe-to-toe with their opposition on things like the Urgot. Keep a lookout for Chinggis to play some spicy picks, however, in an attempt to take over games and put on the carry pants. I'm really excited to see where this team goes in particular. It's just really cool to see universities come in. Like we see Iowa State University, gotta rep them a little bit in some other tournaments, right? Stepping up. It's cool to see that kind of team step into the space. So I'm excited to see what they do. A lot of unknown faces. For sure, definitely agree with you there. I think this is a team that I want to see a ton out of. I know it's a team that I think you said is close to your heart as well. You know the crew a little bit, allegedly, or of the crew, I should say. I work with a guy who went to DePaul. Okay, so that was kind of cool.
Awesome. Love to hear that. But with that in mind, the final team that will be selected, placed into Group D alongside Going Ghost, Clinical, and G&E Aquamarine, is of course going to be Hidden Fang. Another team with another great logo. Also new, with a collection of new players, Hidden Fang is a team that, on paper, has carry potential in all roles. This combined with potent picks like True Tank's Riven, another one, pretty excited to see that, and Shadow Dwarf's Kane, could definitely upset a handful of teams who aren't properly prepared. This team is one to keep your eyes on going forward, as their drafts could definitely get pretty spicy with picks like Katarina, Kassadin, Vayne, and whatever else they have up their sleeves. That's an eclectic collection I'm excited to see. Yeah, the solo queue special picks coming out there. I'm very, very excited to see if any of those are able to really shake up Group D. I think that's definitely, those types of picks can definitely throw a wrench in some teams' plans. With that said, though, all 16 teams have now been drafted and placed into their groups, as we see on your screens right now. Group A is Imperial Gaming, Frostbane, Phantoms, and Conduit Spark. Group B is RAR, New Wave Vice, Hyperion Sword, and Infernal Dive. Group C, Conduit Surge, Revolution Shang, MDF, and DePaul University. And Group D, Going Ghost, Clinical, G&E Aquamarine, and Hidden Fang. Tex, where are you looking? What's spicy? Group B terrifies me. Group B terrifies. Yeah, that is going to be exciting from just like a peak competitiveness, right? That's going to be where you're going to go see a lot of crazy stuff going on. And I'm hoping to see a lot of those like 1 or 2 game differences where like third place is only 2 games or 1 game back from first. That's going to be what I want to see out of Group B. Group A is kind of a bit of an unknown for me. They seem consistently competitive. Group D is going to be also a little bit up in the air for me, but just a little bit more just unknown in general, right? And then Group C is kind of the fun one for me. You got MDF, you got Rev, you got Conduit, and then you got DePaul. Like I don't know how competitive that one's really going to be, but at least it's going to be fun. It's at least going to be fun to see, and I'm excited about that. You heard it here first. Tex does not think Group C is competitive. Prove him wrong. I don't. Okay, so like that's like partially what I said. But again, all 16 teams have now been placed. We see those 4 groups now filled out. With all that said, keep an eye out for an announcement pertaining to the schedule for all of our leagues, IBS, Gold, and Platinum, coming out over the next approximately 48 hours at the latest. Ideally, they should all be released by tomorrow night. Streamed games should be announced approximately 5 days prior to the scheduled start time of your week's games. That can go plus or minus a few days. Don't worry too much about that. With the exception, of course, of Week 1, which will be announced when the schedule is released. Additionally, role selection in the Discord for all accepted teams is now available. So make sure you guys get your roles. Kind of a big deal. You want to be able to talk to your team. You want to be able to play your game. Would be a good start there. Few things to note as well. Halfway through the regular season, teams will be competing in a cross-divisional show match. The matchups for this week will be decided upon by the community in a vote that will be posted later this week. While ZGG is not planning to broadcast these games, we are 1000% looking to promote community organizations and streams that will be broadcasting these games to try and give you guys a little bit more of a platform to grow. If you're interested in covering any of these matchups, feel free to open a ticket in the Discord and start that discussion with us. Tex, any final thoughts here?
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for you guys sticking around listening to my crappy analysis. But I'm genuinely excited for this season. It's going to be super fun. Lots of new teams, lots of old teams, lots of mixed up rosters with veterans on new orgs. That's really cool to me. So I don't know, get out there, have some fun, be competitive, be nice to each other, all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm personally keeping an eye out on that Conduit Surge team. They're the ones that roster-wise look very interesting to me, with some former champions on there. Definitely interested to see where that lands. But that is going to be it for us here. Thank you all for tuning in to the Zero Gravity Gaming Gold League Spring 2022 Group Draw Show. We will be doing something similar to this come playoffs, so keep an eye out for that. But until then, thank you again for watching. We wish you a wonderful night. Take it easy.